In the Unresolved Problems segment tonight, the fight over Justice Scalia's replacement. During a news conference today, President Obama made his most pointed comments yet about it, lashing out at the Senate as obstructionists.
The fact that we've almost grown accustomed to a situation that is almost unprecedented, where every nomination is contested. Everything is blocked, regardless of how qualified the person is. The venom and rancor in Washington has prevented us from getting basic work done.
Joining us now with reaction from Boston, Democratic strategist Marianne Marsh, and with us in studio, Andrea Tantaros, co-host of Outnumbered. Now, Ange, a couple things that struck me on that news conference today was when he said he was blaming the Republicans for being obstructionists. By the way, I think the Republicans should at least hear who he wants to put up. But when he said, when the question was asked whether he was going to nominate a moderate, he said, no, I didn't say that. He didn't say he was or wasn't, but he certainly drew kind of a line in the sand.
Yeah, but the most important thing that jumped out to me is that he's a hypocrite. I mean, he talked about this obstruction, but when President Obama was a senator in 2005, he voted to filibuster Samuel Alito. He also voted against John Roberts, even though he said he was eminently qualified, Eric. He said it was just because of his politics that he couldn't do it. So now President Obama doesn't want Republicans to follow the rules that he created. So it's highly hypocritical. I do agree with you, though, Eric. I think that they should hear who his nominee is. He does have that right. Hear who it is. But I think McConnell needs to stand up and do what the Republican Party elected him and put him into power to do. And that is say, all right, you like a filibuster so much, President Obama? We'll give you a filibuster, 60 votes, and he'll never get it.
The other thing, Marianne, that struck me during that news conference was that President Obama was basically saying, oh, the Republicans, all of a sudden they want to go by the rule of law. They want to go by the rule of the word of the Constitution. Well, President Obama himself has been working his way around the Constitution for the better part of 7 years. Think Obamacare using the Commerce Clause. Think Executive Order on Immigration. Think Gitmo. Think drone program. He's been time and time again going around the Constitution.
No, if that were the case, then they would have all been overturned, Eric. The fact is, he's used every tool at his disposal every time the Republicans have thwarted him. And to Andrea's point, both Alito and Roberts are in the court. So you can filibuster, you can vote against people, but let's go through this. And that's what I don't understand about this. Not only is it wrong not to fill Scalito's seat, it's bad politics. I don't understand why Republicans think that voters will reward them.
Andrea and I both are agreeing with you that let the process work. Let him nominate and let the Republicans decide whether they want to put that nominee in the seat.
Well, but then it sounds as if, when you listen to the other Republicans, that they're not ever going to even vote on it. So I think the issue here is, I don't understand why Republicans think voters will reward them for not playing by the rules and doing their job, when that's exactly what's fueling this election. And you're looking at a Republican primary where more Republicans are turning out, but it's not only Republicans who are going to vote in November, it's all voters, many moderates, many independents, and that's going to hurt Republicans and hand the Senate to the Democrats.
I don't have a ton of time, but I want to get this in. President Obama actually weighed in on Donald Trump.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president. And the reason is because I have a lot of faith in the American people. And I think they recognize that being president is a serious job. It's not hosting a talk show or a reality show.
All right. Marianne, your thoughts on the president weighing in on Donald Trump's potential nomination? Wow.
Well, notice he didn't say he wouldn't be the nominee. Okay, so if Trump wins on Saturday, it's hard to imagine he won't be the nominee. And I believe if it's a Trump-Clinton race, it's going to be one of the closest elections we've seen since 2000. A very tough, hard-fought race between them.
What do you think, Ange? Was that the time or the place for President to be weighing in on the 20s? I know he's asked the question, but I don't know. Maybe at some point you go, let's talk about the Supreme Court.
Eric, he's very, very worried. I mean, we saw him sit down with 60 Minutes last month and mention Trump by name and say that he's making the blue-collar male angry. That, to me, told me they're looking at numbers and they see that Trump has crossover appeal with male blue-collar voters. That's supposedly a Democratic stronghold, and President Obama is nervous. And you know this. You don't punch down You always punch up. He is actually elevating Donald Trump, and I think it helps him in a Republican primary to have President Obama attack him. Are you surprised
he did? You're surprised he took the bait on that question?
I'm not surprised because he's done it before. The Democrats are very nervous about Donald Trump winning and the crossover appeal breaking into those Reagan Democrats, traditional Democratic voters. I think it's really telling.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. Marianne, thank you very much for bringing fair and balance to the debate right here. And no spin. Up next, Bill Clinton letting loose against Bernie Sanders supporters. Will a Clinton campaign's escalating attacks stop the Sanders surge or turn voters off? We'll be right back with that. In the Factor follow-up segment tonight, can the Clinton campaign put a stop to the Bernie Sanders onslaught? Its attacks against Sanders are getting sharper by the day, with Bill Clinton delivering a biting insult about Sanders supporters during a rally in Florida.
It's not altogether mysterious that there are a lot of people that say, well, the Republican Party rewarded the Tea Party. Just tell people what they want to hear, move them to the right, and we'll be rewarded, except they didn't get anything done. Then that's going on now in our party. If you don't deal with the fact that we are too politically polarized and we keep rewarding people who tell us things they know they can't do because it pushes our hot buttons, we can't go forward together.
Joining us now to analyze from Washington, Nayyera Huq, who is a State Department senior advisor under Hillary Clinton, and from Miami, defense attorney and Sanders supporter, Andel Brown, a.k.a. the Lion, according to his Twitter page. All right, Lion, what do you think about being compared to the Tea Party?
Well, it smacks of desperation to try to slow Bernie Sanders' progress down. When Bill has to go out and do Hillary's dirty work, it reminds me of 2008 and Barack Obama all over again, where Bill came with the big fairy tale. It didn't work then, and it's not working now. The American people know better, and they're not falling for this.
Nayyera, now, Hillary Clinton, over the last couple of debates, even on the campaign trail, has basically said she's going to be the third term of Barack Obama. Very interesting tactic there. She's pushing away from Sanders. But here's my question. Do you really want to be that? Do you want to be the third party Obama when, under President Obama, African-American incomes have gone down, poverty has gone up, and employment has gone down? Is that what you're really going for?
Well, what you really want is the majority of 5 million voters that President Obama had in his second resounding victory. So two-term president, following on progress that he has made. Certainly, if you're talking to a primary voting base, separating yourself from people who love Obama, as Bernie Sanders has done, is starting to tackle, not only attack Hillary's record, but also attack President Obama's record, is not going to get you Democratic primary voters in your lane.
Well, what about that, Andel? Is Bernie Sanders, he said he's going to run a positive campaign. He's not going negative, but I'm like an outside viewer here saying, why wouldn't you attack that Obama record? If you're African American, it hasn't been good. By the way, whites' incomes have gone up. Hispanics' incomes have gone up. Blacks' incomes have gone down under Obama. That's income inequality separating, widening.
Well, it's about more than just whether you like one candidate or not, or whether you're going to go with to try to continue Obama's policies or not. It's about what policies work best for the American people, all of the American people, including African Americans. So if you're going to look at the issues, Bernie Sanders is bringing about solutions that appeal to moving forward, not going back.
Let's talk about those
Hillary's
solutions, actually. I'm so glad to hear about
Obama,
solutions, because
rather than moving forward.
Part of what the challenges we're seeing is that Bernie has some wonderful rhetoric. I think this morning New York Times and Austin Goolsbee, a leading economist, called it puppies and rainbows. And actually, I think now it's puppies that fly with magic lottery tickets. The reality is that the Democratic Party is advocating for health care. It's advocating for equal access and opportunity, and an increase to income. And that's something that needs to be discussed in detail. Simply saying that you're going to promise free college education but yet expand government by 50% is not reality. So now we're looking at the phase of the campaign where reality is catching up to some of Bernie's lofty rhetorics, and it's not holding up.
Now, Andel, Saturday Night Live this weekend had a great skit on Hillary Clinton where there's a bunch of young people sitting around, and they're basically saying, oh, yeah, we're going to vote for Hillary, right? And they're all, yeah, but they really like Bernie. Tell us, what do young people really like Bernie? Is it, in fact, what Naira says, it's the free stuff?
Well, I think it's about more than free stuff. I think the young people, as they're looking ahead to the future, they see Bernie's vision for what America can be, and it's different from what it has been, the old establishment, the way things have always been done. And I think young people are excited about that, they're motivated about that, and they're turning out to the polls.
Do they care,
and they're feeling
Andel?
the burn.
Do they care
I wouldn't dismiss.
Hold on, Andel. Do they care how you're going to pay for it? Do they care about the debt? I mean, honestly, do they care about $19 trillion additional on top of the $19 trillion we're already in debt?
Of course,
I think we should give young people a lot more credit than...
That's part of the problem. Excuse me.
Let Andel finish. Go ahead.
What they're looking at is that Bernie has a plan that talks about how to generate the income to pay for these things. It's not all fairy tales or puppies and rainbows or whatever has been said about it. It's a plan. When they can't deal with the policies and attack his track record, all they can say is, well, it sounds too good to be true. That's a losing position. It lost in 2008, and I feel like it's going to lose again in 2016.
Andel's right, Nair. I mean, these are some of the same things that came up years ago in 2008, as Andel points out. You see Bill Clinton walking around with a long face going, not this again. Should he worry?
I actually think that in the last 8 years, Hillary and Obama have developed a great relationship. Certainly the campaign teams have grown and strengthened, and now they've practically morphed together. So you have a lot of the ground game memory from the Obama team now being adopted by the Hillary folks. And so this idea that Bernie is the heir apparent isn't really holding up to what the campaign structure looks like, and frankly, what some of the rhetoric is. I mean, Hillary is proud to say that she's allied with the Obama administration, but no, she's not. She's certainly not taking anything.
She hasn't
for the last, as Secretary of State.
There was a lot of fighting going on, after the 2008, and then after she left the State Department, there was a lot of bickering going back between the Obamas and the Clintons. I got to leave it right there. Naira and Andel, thank you very much. When we come right back, Hillary Clinton's desperate efforts to hold on to the black vote, even meeting today with Al Sharpton, is one of her longtime bases turning on her. Moments away.
Years and counting.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Eric Bowling in for Bill O'Reilly, and in the Impact segment tonight, Hillary Clinton and black voters. Concerns are swirling that her support among African Americans, once thought to be ironclad, may be slipping. So today, Hillary met with black leaders in New York City, including Al Sharpton, and delivered remarks on race to try and shore up support. It comes on the heels of her new ad campaign trying to appeal to black voters.
Something is just fundamentally broken when African Americans are more likely to be arrested by police and sentenced to longer prison terms for doing the same thing that whites do. When too many encounters with law enforcement, and tragically, we need investments in education, healthcare, and jobs to counter generations of neglect. We have to face up to the hard truth of injustice and systemic racism.
Joining us now from Washington to analyze, syndicated radio host Richard Fowler, and from Boynton Beach, Republican strategist Chris Metzler. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Chris. You look and you watch what's going on. And in fact, in South Carolina, you watch what's going on down there. And 74% of black voters, Democrats in South Carolina, favor Hillary Clinton. Why?
Because they like Bill Clinton. They don't like Hillary Clinton. They want another term of Bill Clinton. Here's the problem with Hillary. First of all, the barking as a dog, give me a break. Secondly, in 2008, remember her whole characterization of black voters. And so to suggest that somehow all of a sudden she's found religion, and by the way, if she is so really enamored with the black vote, why is she meeting with the race baiters in Harlem, Sharpton, etc.?
Richard, if she's so enamored with the black folk, as Christopher points out, why is she meeting with Sharpton? And I want to talk to you a little bit about the Clintons' history with African Americans. Go ahead. Why is she meeting with Sharpton?
Oh, I think we saw Bernie Sanders meet with him last week, and I think what Hillary's doing, and mind you, she met more with Al Sharpton. It was a group of civil rights leaders, including the National Urban League, the National Bar Association, and a number of other groups that she met with today. And I think the ideal of meeting with them was to talk about the issues facing the African American community. The African American vote is not monolithic. It doesn't go to one person.
Let's talk about what the issues are.
I think it depends upon how you parse the African American vote. I think there's two camps, right? You have your Obama voters / Black Lives Matter folks, and I think there's sort of one camp, and the other camp is your more so Christian, church-based African American voters. And there are two different issues. The one issue that they have in common is criminal justice reform, which is a bipartisan issue. And to be honest with you,
criminal justice reform. Let's talk about that for 1 second. 1994, Bill Clinton instituted 3 strikes and you're out, right? Remember
that? It was a bad law.
Wait, but not only that, Bill Clinton did it, but Hillary Clinton, and I remember this, Hillary Clinton was out on the talk show circuit talking about this program, this law that basically incarcerated tens of thousands of African Americans and minorities.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that law is one of her problems. She's going to have to talk to younger voters as to how she's gone beyond the 1994 crime bill. With that being said, the 1994 crime bill is an add-on to Ronald Reagan's failed war on drugs, right? And so that's part of the problem.
But stop.
So we're blaming Reagan now.
She backed it and she pushed it. Christopher,
no, I agree with you. I'm not disputing the facts.
No. Income. African American incomes have gone down under President Obama, yet Hillary Clinton, as you point out, wants to be the third term Obama. Why?
Hello. Yes, that's right. And that's the problem. And so she backed it. And if you look at Hillary Clinton's kind of uncomfortable relationship with race, that's exactly what she has. She uses
this uncomfortable relationship? Please explain.
She uses it when it's comfortable for her, number one. Number two, Richard, I think it's interesting that you have said, and you contradicted yourself here, that the black vote is not monolithic.
Exactly.
But hold on. But by the way, then you broke it down into the so-called religious voters and the other voters, all of whom tend to be Democrats. So
wait a second, Chris, wait a minute. I've got to interrupt you on this point.
No,
because
please, I am not
Richard,
done.
Quick, let me get Richard in here.
I am not done.
Okay, quick, finish, sir. Chris.
Okay, so from my perspective, those of us who are conservative blacks, we vote as well. Thank you.
I don't disagree with the fact that conservative blacks broke. I appreciate the prose and the poetry, but let's talk about the facts here. I think Chris is absolutely right. If Republicans want to go after black voters, they want to go after votes, they should go after black voters. Ted Cruz should be on a black church tour because South Carolina is an open primary. It's an open primary. They're not even going after black votes. Not one of these candidates are going after black votes.
We need to focus. Richard, Chris,
you
thank
call it what you want to, Chris.
Directly ahead, a stunning new poll shows Americans losing confidence in our military might. Can any of the presidential candidates restore its strength and actually keep this country safe? The Factor is coming right back. In the Back of the Book segment tonight, Keeping America Safe. A new Gallup poll shows fewer Americans than ever believe the U.S. military is the best in the world. 49% of adults believe the U.S. is the world's top military power, the lowest level in the poll's 23-year history, and get this, down 10 percentage points from just a year ago. Recent comments like this from the director of the CIA probably aren't helping matters.
If there was a major attack here and we had ISIS fingerprints on it, certainly this would encourage us to be even more forceful in terms of what it is that we need to do.
If our policy after an attack in the United States would be to be more forceful, why isn't that our policy now, before an attack?
Well, I think we're being as forceful as we can be and making sure that we're being surgical, though, as well. What we don't want to do is to alienate others within that region and have any type of indiscriminate actions that are going to lead to deaths of additional civilians.
Wow. With Americans increasingly worried about our security and military might, which 2016 candidate is best suited to restore their faith? Joining us now to analyze from Palm Springs, Rick Grinnell, former U.S. spokesman at the UN, and from Washington, Simon Rosenberg, president of the New Democrat Network. Simon, starting with you, my jaw dropped. When I saw that, I was more shocked than Scott Pelley when he heard John Brennan say, basically, let's wait until ISIS attacks us before we take them out, because we don't want to instigate the Muslims. I guess that's what he's referring to.
Listen, I want to agree with your premise, which is that I think Americans are feeling unsafe. I think they're feeling unsure about the world. I think that poll number, reflects that. And I think that the Democrats who are going to be running in 2016, even though I'm proud of Obama's record, and I can go down a whole long list of things he's done in Asia, Latin America, and so on, it's going to be defined in this election about what happens in the Middle East, Syria, ISIS, I think, and the spillover into Europe. There's no question.
That poll shows Americans are more concerned about Americans' military might globally than ever in the 23-year history of the poll. Rick, Brennan basically saying, let's wait till there's a pile of American bodies piled up, and then we'll go ahead and take out ISIS. I mean, come on. President Obama started this in 2009, did he not?
Yeah, look, we saw it starting to mount in Syria, and he ignored it. What Brennan said there about being surgical, I think, is an absolutely correct statement. We want to be surgical. We don't want to carpet bomb, as some GOP candidates have said. But this administration has tried to bomb from the air and has refused to be surgical. Being surgical means you send in intelligence sources on the ground. We still haven't taken out the command and control center for ISIS. The reason why is because we're bombing from the air. We're not putting intelligence officers on the ground, which is code word for boots on the ground. The Kurds can't do it, as Ted Cruz says. We really need to have U.S. troops in there. We are the best, and we're going to have to do it. We don't have to try to build the country back up, but we need to have intelligence officers there to know where to bomb. Let me turn the discussion
a little bit. Another area that a lot of Americans are really ticked off. Iran. We just learned today that Iran is now trying to negotiate a deal with the Russians to buy a super tank that the Russians build. That violates the sanctions. That violates the deal we put together with Iran. Simon, we gave Iran, or in the process of giving Iran, $100 billion. They're taking the money and buying tanks with it, violating the sanction rules.
Well, first of all, we didn't give them anything, right? I mean, this is their money, and we've released sanctions. But we didn't give it to them. We didn't give it to them. I mean, be more precise. But the point is that, look, Iran's an independent, sovereign nation. I mean, they are clearly in a regional struggle for power and influence with Saudi Arabia and other Sunni governments in the region. One shouldn't expect for them. They've disarmed their nuclear program. They're not going to disarm. They are not going to disarm. They're not going to disarm their conventional.
Highly effective jet fighter from the Russians. Rick, they're using the money that we gave back to them. I don't know. Maybe we could have spread that out over the course of 10 years.
Well, look, I don't believe that it is their money. It was money that was frozen because they're the world sponsor of terrorism. If Simon wants to say that a terrorist organization that has a state sponsorship is allowed to get their money back because they're a sovereign nation, I think there's a lot of Democrats that would disagree with him. Just because Iran is sovereign doesn't mean that we have to go along and give them their terrorist money back. This deal from the very beginning has been violated almost on a weekly basis, but we have been unable to call it and say that the Iranians are violating it. I mean, you just look at Parchin. We're not inspecting military sites, but yet, John Kerry says, oh, we were able to disarm them, and even Simon just said that they have.
Got to leave it right there, guys. Disarmed. Rick and Simon, thank you very much.
Eric, thanks so much.
And a quick reminder. If you want to see Miller and O'Reilly on tour, there are 2 shows with tickets remaining. Los Angeles at the Microsoft Theater on March 12th and Fairfax, Virginia at the Eagle Bank Arena on May 7th. And if you want to become a premium member, you get access to great exclusive content, so be sure to check out BillO'Reilly.com.
Certainly crossed a line this weekend when he accused George W. Bush and used a code pink talking line on a Republican stage to accuse him of intentionally lying again and not addressing the issues that we face today, 13 years later.
Okay, so Emily, let me ask you this, though. Chris Christie took a shot at Marco Rubio. It cost him. He lost New Hampshire. He had to get out of the race. Jeb Bush has decided to take on Donald Trump, and his numbers, frankly, the last poll, he was in last place.
Yeah, and I think that's just still a symptom of how split the Republican base is right now among this incredible field of candidates. I do want to make one point, which is that
It's a positive. You can say you have right now about 30% of the Republican electorate is for Donald Trump. About 20% of the Democrat electorate is for Donald Trump. Now, when you look at that, that means 70% of Republican voters, principles do matter too. You know, you could say it that way. So I think that's positive news.
I hate
for
that.
People.
Emily, I really hate that. And Katie, here's why I hate it. Because you have 5 people or 6 people, 5 people in the race splitting the vote. Any way you slice it, how's this? You want numbers? Donald Trump has 200% of what Ted Cruz has, 200% of what Marco Rubio has, and has 600% of what Jeb Bush has.
Well, I think when you look at the numbers and really the calculation of other candidates on the, quote, establishment side of the spectrum, I think that Jeb Bush could do us all a couple of favors and maybe decide to, you know, give his donors to someone who can actually win and consolidate on and make it a Trump versus whoever else campaign, and we'll see who wins then. But you're right, the poll numbers haven't shifted, but there are 70% of the population on the Republican side who disagree with Donald Trump. So yes, he is winning in a 5-man, 6-man race, but he's not winning a majority.
And none of them are.
Right.
And none of them are.
Well, one important thing.
I'm just about the numbers, and it just drives me crazy when people say he's only getting 35%. Well, he's getting double, triple, and quadruple of some of the other candidates.
Eric, you asked the question about whether principles matter, and the fact is that the conservative principles that have been embedded for a very long time in the Republican Party, the records of people who are not Donald Trump actually reflect that. They're not just saying things, they've done things. Donald Trump has changed his mind in the last 5, 2, 1 year, I don't know, last debate on liberal issues. That's the difference. Principles do matter, and the other candidates have them, and Donald Trump does not.
We'll put you down for a maybe. Ladies, thank you very much. President Obama versus the GOP, how the clash of wills over the Supreme Court, the federal courts, and his entire agenda will play out. Stay tuned.
Greatest feeling in the world.
Well, shake it off, Tay-Tay. Shake it off. Remember, haters gonna hate. And that's it for us tonight. I'm Eric Bowling in for Bill O'Reilly. Please remember, the spin right here stops right here because we're looking out for you.